Welcome, my beautiful angels, to Soul Healing Summit Season 3. We get to explore different healing modalities and find the one that is right for you. Today's guest is Sonia Barrett, who is the host and the producer of the radio show, The Expansion Zone. Being the author of several books, her work bridges the gap between science and spirituality in a very simplified format. Sonia addresses the programming, beliefs, concepts by which we have lived our lives both individually and collectively. And she teaches and coaches the natural science of the path inward, which I'm so looking forward to finding out more. Welcome, beautiful soul. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm absolutely honored.
Beautiful. I'm so happy to have you here. And I want to dive straight into the path inward. Would you please share a little bit about that?
The natural science of the path inward, it's actually a series of workshops, but it's based on the idea that the going inward is truly the natural path. You can look at it as the path of nature, which is natural. And so the idea was based on that. Well, we always say, go within, go within. So that was the emphasis, the natural path within, because you can't, no matter what you do, you have to come back to here. Everything out there is coming from within. Every idea, everything we've imagined, creation in itself, coming into existence is coming from a deeper within. So it was that idea of returning to that idea of the path within and really emphasizing that it is natural for you to do that, as opposed to so much of the externalizing that we do. So it's just bringing people back home to that idea, to that truth, really.
And I love that you actually host a program every Wednesday called the Reality
Reality Wednesday,
Wednesday.
right?
Yes, tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that.
Well, Reality Wednesday is something I came up with 7 years ago, actually, and sometimes I think, oh my God, I couldn't imagine that it's been that long. But every Wednesday, it's generally the first Wednesday of every month, and there are many people that sometimes can't afford to attend a workshop or not, they're just not in a position to. So I wanted to have something that everybody could have an opportunity to come away with a little food for their soul and maybe help them to navigate in whatever conditions they're dealing with in their life in that moment, and really support that and bring that spark back from inside, not hype, because I'm really big on that. I don't like people to be hyped up. I want them to feel something coming from within, so that it's sustaining, it's longer. So Reality Wednesday, I cover just so many different topics, and so that's basically what we do. So it's everything. It gets very sciencey sometimes, and at the same time it comes down to the just a very simplicity of reality, of existence, and bringing people back to the simplicity of life when it gets to be overwhelming, and you bring yourself back. It's like, wait a second, let me back up. Is it really that serious? So that's what Reality Wednesday is about, and people really look forward to it.
You shared a little bit about the path inwards, and I want to hear your story specifically. Was this something that you had within since you were a child, where there is something that was a pivotal moment in your life that made you look inwards versus trying to find the answers outside?
Yes, in the sense of childhood. Okay, so I definitely came into this life extremely curious, and my ideas about life were definitely different from as far back as I can remember. So the curiosity and the questioning was has always been there about life. However, you go through your years, your teenage years, and even in teenage years, I certainly had a lot of interest in sci-fi, and even Edgar Casey, and just many of these things that I had an interest in. I put that aside for a little bit and went on with life, and got married, and then got divorced. And it was after it was during that process, after the divorce, really, and this is like 1992, that I had to ask myself, what was that? What was that 14 years about? What is this thing we call life? And that was the question for me. What is this thing we call life? What is this? It's got to be something else. And so I set out to try to understand this myself. I set aside books. I had, a couple of things that I read, and then I set it aside. I always say Shirley MacLaine, Out on a Limb. This is a long time ago. Out on a Limb and Dancing with the Light. And then it let me know. I was like, oh, other people are kind of asking these questions back then. Then I didn't know anything about meditating. I didn't know how to meditate because I grew up, in the church as a child, and it was really just about praying. And so I set out I said, there's got to be a way to know. There's got to be a way to know more. And that's what I did. I diligently started to sit, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do with meditation. And over time, eventually, with being so persistent, I started doing breathing. There is this breath that took over. And that from there opened up this whole other experience for me, where I really began to see and feel something that was beyond this structure of life as we know it. But I began to feel more, and I began to over time realize that I could get answers and that I could find out so much. Anyway, I'm making a long story short. But anyway, but that's kind of basically what happened. And just to back it up a little bit, I'd like to throw this in if I have to bring up this part of it, because there are people out there that are going through so many different things. I was in an abusive marriage, physically abusive, physically, emotionally abusive marriage. And when I left, I literally had ran away with 2 children and slept in my car for almost 2 weeks because I had no access to money or anything. And so I had gone on this journey, and eventually we got into an apartment and all of that. So it was a culmination at that point of, okay, what is this? And that's what drove me. Of 10 solid years, I began to, on my own, just master this whole other experience of going within, for me, of meditating to a point where I didn't have to meditate quite the same as I did anymore. And now it was more being able to do this while you're awake, because that's
Yeah.
really what you're supposed to do. Meditation is really about that. It's not just about the moment of meditating. It's about learning how to be in that space all the time. That doesn't mean you're up in the woo woo in the air. No, you're just in a more aware, present state. You become more present. Is life still challenging? Sure. But you learn more and how to navigate it when you are more available and present to that part of you that supersedes this third dimensional life.
I love the way you share, and you're such a embodiment of speaking that truth. Hence, a lot of projects that you've done, including the documentary that you've done quite a few years ago. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, that film is called The Business of Disease. That film actually came about because I wrote an article called The Marketing of Breast Cancer, the Pink Ribbon Agenda. And when I wrote that article, which is still on my website, it was written back in, I don't know, maybe 2010 or 2000, somewhere around there. And I thought I was going to do just a little interview. I wanted to understand, or wanted to share this with people about symbols, and I wondered what kind of impact this was having on our minds, because of it was such an emphasis on the pink ribbon and pink and pink, and it was just so much. And I thought, well, how's our brain taking all of this in and interpreting it? Are people becoming more susceptible because of fear? I mean, it was just all of that. So this is what happened, and it evolved into a feature film, which was not intended, but that's what happened. So it came from there, and I had got these wonderful experts to really come in the film and speak on all of these things, but it was mainly focused on the aspect, the second half anyway, on the mind and the power that we do have, and just all of that emotional aspect of it. So it wasn't just, this is what's being done to us. I didn't want a film that was just, okay, this is what's being done to us. It's like, okay, well, this is what's happening. Well, what is your role in this? And what choices do you have? And what are some of the new technologies that are being discovered?
So, in other words, you expose some of the hidden agenda that it is behind a lot of these marketing techniques that we're getting bombarded every day.
Right, right. So the film is more relevant, this is what I'm hearing, than ever now, because of when it came out. I started this project in 2010. It took like 5 years to finish this. And so now you're looking on and you're seeing, you're like, wow, based on what I spoke about then and what we see now. But marketing is incredible, as we now see, over the last 3 years. So we have to look at what's being marketed to us, and we have to look at how we are interacting with that marketing, because it's very subtle. It's many different things, and it's very subtle: billboards, commercials, just things that are right before you that you don't realize that you're taking that in. So again, it comes back to that idea of really being present, and really taking that inward journey for that true direction, so that we don't get so sucked in that we're soaked in fear. Because is there's fear that's necessary to keep us alert, and then there is the fear where you're in constant fight or flight. You're not sure what's going to happen, and that in itself can make you very sick, and make your immune system lower your immune system, and make you more vulnerable to so many things. So I like to throw that in as well.
And knowing all of this subliminal messaging that is literally everywhere, and it's tough to actually put a pair of glasses on and avoid them, is there a practice that you personally use to clear that, I would say, debris of information that shouldn't be in our subconscious?
For me, it is constant observation, but not, when I say observation, I don't mean like obsessive observation. It's just, once again, being present as possible and available to see what's before me, to see if I'm sitting and I'm watching TV. Now, some people say, well, I don't watch television. Well, I do. There's things that I like that I watch. I like sci-fi. There's just things that I watch. And I also like the idea of being able to see what's being marketed. What is the market, whether it's from a movie to a series to a commercial. I'm going, wow. And so for me, it's just even the exercise of allowing myself to see what this message is trying to convey to me, and that in itself makes the message not absorbable to me, because I am allowing myself to see, and I'm going, wow, so that's the message. Well, that message doesn't align with me. So to me, that's something that people have to learn to do, is to examine everything before you. And it's just a natural process, not like you're having to try really hard. Over time, you start to just notice, you pay attention, be present in your life with what you're doing, be available to your reality in the moment, just be available to yourself. And to me, that is what I work when I work and do workshops and speak with other people. Those are some things that I really emphasize, because it's when you're so absent from yourself that information is just, you're just open. Your mind is just open, and information just flows in, and it's there and floating around. Not that it doesn't happen at all. I'm not saying that there aren't things that I've soak in, right? When I started using things like OMG, I'm like, why am I doing that? You pick up trends. You see what I mean? There are things that automatically start to happen, some things, but if you're aware and you laugh, you go, wait a second, why did I even start saying this? It's the silliness of some of this that I think keeps me, where I am. It's, instead of being mad about it, but recognizing how am I interpreting this inward.
So the awareness of what is happening and being aware, that's job halfway done, because by being aware you can discern what you allow in and what you don't. I want to hear about, because I just, for whatever reason, even before we met, when I checked in and I connected with your soul level, I just saw the same, like a similar energy with Joan of Arc. Am I
Joan
correct?
of Arc. Yeah.
Joan of Arc, yeah. You just have that, like that drive and the fire within you that I'm still waiting for it to unleash to the world, because you stand for your truth
Yeah.
like somebody I know, which is my mother, and I haven't seen that fire in a long time. So whatever that is and whichever projects, but I want to ask, what is your
It's
next?
good though when you said Joan of Arc. That's really interesting. Yeah, I do tend to be very warrior, not war, but very strong and firm in my movement forward. And I'm solid in what I believe in, come what may. This is my footing, my foundation.
That's the quality of a true warrior or a true leader, that maybe we don't lead a war, but we lead the masses to peace, to inner peace.
Hmm.
That's another piece of it. I want to ask, what are you really passionate about? What is one thing that just like fires you up so much that you stand for it?
Oh my gosh. What fires me up is what we're talking about. What fires me up, and everybody who knows about my work, what fires me up is being able to intercept, to being able to break through more of programming and conditioning of perspectives about what reality is and what's possible, what we've been told, what we've been fed, what's been passed on through our genes, through just ongoing, and to really keep allowing myself to break through that, to become more, right here, right now. That drives me, and that is encompasses everything and in every moment of life. So I'm passionate about the journey. I am passionate about all my experiences because they're all truly opportunities, and I do see them. Even the moments where I might be in tears, I'm like, okay, well, what's this about right here? How can I see what the opportunity is behind it that even led me to make the choice that I made? And then you're using everything as a stepping stone, and you're discovering more. And for me, it's the passion of self-discovery, self-discovery on a level that is allowing me to really kind of get a taste of what I am beyond any construct of time and space. That which we seek, that is undefinable, that is showing up as what we think we are, which is a human in these bodies. So that's what drives me. That's what makes me passionate, is the journey, the discovery.
The self realization,
Mhm.
decoding the matrix, and becoming all they could be in a present moment.
Mhm.
This sounds so magical. Would you love to take our VIP members through a journey to get a taste of what it's like to be in your presence and receive your gift? Beautiful. Thank you for the, I felt like a clarity journey.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what it is. It's a clarity journey. It's like, okay, it's on. It's on. And then you go back the moments where you're feeling challenged. And when I do workshops over the years, I've always said, you got to build a foundation. You can build a foundation, and that foundation is what you will stand on when those moments come, and that hurricane feels like it's coming into your life, and you stand solid on it, and knowing that whatever you're experiencing as a difficulty in that moment will pass. But if you don't have a foundation of a knowingness that no matter what, I'm okay. No matter what, I'm okay. And it becomes a knowing and not just a belief. The more you stand on that, is the easier it becomes to go through your challenges without falling off of your foundation. And real quickly, I just to give people an idea, I always say that money is such an interesting thing, because when we are flowing a lot of times in cash, we've got money, sometimes people feel more inclined to be spiritual, or whatever they call spiritual, more balanced, they feel more, all of that. Then the money starts going away and it starts dwindling, and then suddenly you're not feeling quite as spiritual, so we tend to do that kind of thing. And those are defining moments. Those are the moments where you notice and you go, wait a second, that's what I'm doing. And the stronger you become with recognizing when you're doing that, is the less some of those things will happen, because you won't need the exercise program so much. Those things happen so we have to have exercise programs for ourselves. Otherwise, we don't know that we know. And so your money may, sometimes it goes up and down. It doesn't have to be that way all the time, but sometimes those are the conditions we set up for ourselves to get ourselves to these other places on a journey.
I love what you said. And for our audience, please write this down and put it on your fridge. No matter what, everything's going to be okay. No matter what, I'm going to be okay. As literally as you said that, I saw the entire collective like just having that sign, because our words have vibrations. So reciting these affirmations over and over, allowing ourselves to feel the truth of it, or begin to feel the glimpses of that truth, soon enough becomes a reality. Because no matter what, you're okay. You made it to today and you've been through a lot. You're still
Absolutely.
here.
I love it. Exactly. I always say that no matter what you've gone through, you're here right now. So somehow you're doing it. Somehow you're doing it. And you have to stop and appreciate the fact that I've been through all kinds of things in the journey, but here I am right now. And just stop and really soak that up. That's important.
You mentioned a few times that the reality is not really what we think of, and the humanness is only a portion of ourselves. Would you please unpack a little bit about that?
There's a collective interpretation of reality that we have. We have a collective version, meaning they're agreed on ideas and concepts and beliefs about what reality is. There's some base principles that we operate by, and so yes, it is. There's different levels of programs, but we have that perception of what reality is. Now, is a lot of that just passed down? For me, that was a question. It's like, how do I know I like the color red? What was the influence there? So you start examining those things. But reality and the potential to experience reality, because all we have is an ocean of potentialities waiting to happen. Reality can be way more than the tiny box of what we think reality is, and the little life experiences that we're having as human beings. And that experience can be had right here in this body, in this physical body as well. We don't have to constantly think that we're just preparing ourselves, for what comes next. No, let's be present. Let's be here, right here now. This is why you're here, is to know what it is to be human on all levels. And you might not experience every possibility of what a human can be, good, bad, or indifferent, but somebody's experiencing that. So you're experiencing your little piece of that. Now, when we snap out of that to some degree, and we start to recognize those things, then that's when we start to desire the veil to be removed, so that we're not just stuck on this perception of reality that we've been given by our parents and then grandparents and society, but we start to see further, oh my gosh, there is more. Life can be more. I am more. I am superhuman. There are abilities that I that are there waiting to happen within me. My brain wants to allow me to access more, to see more, to be more. And so when I say that with reality, yes, there's a lot more happening here. Obviously, we live in a field where we're experiencing what we experience, and our eyes are telling us that we see, but everything is right here, right now, just layers of it at different frequencies, different vibrations, but everything is right here, right now. And we're only seeing what we can accept as a possibility. And when the more we start to move beyond that, our brain starts to remove those filters. Actually, it removes more of those filters because it has access to everything. We are so much more than our brain and our bodies, but this is the technology that we have, this vehicle, this vessel, an incredible sensory system that allows us to feel and experience our emotions and sensations and everything that we do. But we can go further, and that's how we talk about getting into other dimensions and realities and potentialities. It's not all woo woo, it's all there. It's just different levels of now that we're experiencing. And so to come into that realization and redefining the idea of what it is to be human, we have been conditioned to experience, again, this very limited and limiting version of what it is to be a human being. We can be more. These molecules can be more. We can take on so much more in terms of how we look, what we are, where we travel to. There's a lot more there, and we have to be able to, if we're interested, because you don't have to do anything. If everybody isn't here to make those kinds of breakthroughs. Now, it's not good, it's not bad. It's just some people are just not here to do that. Some people are, because we're all free agents here. But to recognize this is to then drive you. Now you're driven to realize that, oh my gosh, I've been living this really tiny life. And these things I'm so focused on are so tiny in the bigger picture. And that's when the clearing begins. You start to clear and become, you just start to move into a different space of thinking. And that in itself starts to open up the possibilities of seeing more than what we are. Going beyond our little concept of time is something that I'm known to talk about, how that all works in terms of time and in terms of even our lifespan. Are we given these concepts? Are these just concepts that we're wired for? Or, I mean, do they just really not exist, but you're just so programmed for it? Can you be more than that? Can you live beyond these prescribed ideas and numbers? All of those things is what I'm speaking of.
So, would time be considered a tool to keep us in the matrix construct?
It is a tool, but we're really the ones that are regulating it. We just don't realize that, because that's why it's so pliable. It just like, the brain is everything, it's all pliable, but it is a tool that is essential. It was essential that we're able to quantify what we would call moments, to quantify it into an illusion of some sort of measured value, so that we could experience specifically the version of reality that we're experiencing. We had to have this concept, this idea of time, in order to do that. So it's not a good or bad thing. It's just the awareness that this is what was necessary for this idea of the human game. But could I go beyond that? Certainly we can go beyond that. And I think that's what we have to understand. So we don't want to beat up on time. Time is like a thief. All of those things we have to understand. Well, how are we wired for this then? How are we tied into it? Because it is apparent that we are. I always say something measures our lives. Our lives are measured, our ages, the number of cycles you're here. which is why people go, okay, when you're in this age, your 60s, or when you're in such and such a age, this is what happens. Does it really have to happen that way? Or is that all just a conditioning, and reality is responding to us? It's a feedback loop. Everything is giving us what we are saying that we want. Just like we've evolved and adapted, we continue to adapt for as long as we've been in these bodies on the planet. There's been a process of adaptation. That's all part of it. So there's an incredible science at work that goes beyond our perception of science here. But creation in itself is just a science that cannot be defined. And I think it's to come into that realization that it's so much bigger. Can I allow myself to be immeasurable and to see how much more, what more can I be? How much more can I be? Can I allow that without running the program of, oh, well, when you get to this age, this is what happens. That's a program. It's just a program, and your body responds to the program, because that information, that data is in us because it's been passed down. So you have to make a choice as to, wait a second, I get that is program data. I want to do more. And that's how we begin to change. That's how the adaptation happens. A desire. Oh, we need to grow longer legs. We can't keep trying to run from these dinosaurs and whatever is chasing us. Human beings have adapted. It's in us to change like that. We have to just recognize that we can do that, continue to do that every step of the way.
So beautifully said. There were so many things that you unpacked in just this few moments, and I would go back and listen to this again because there's so many like amazing light codes going off. It's so interesting that you say that about linear time, because when you do a meditation and you find yourself traveling not only in other dimensions but past life, this and that, and you come back and it's only been 10 minutes in the linear
Right.
time. And you're like, how do we explain that I just did all of this in
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes?
Absolutely.
But as a human, in 10 minutes, I can barely make a coffee. There's some disconnect here. Like, how can we connect those wires so I can allow the fullness of my potential to
Mm-hmm.
channel through this physical body? Because we do have the tool, the machine, we just haven't learned how to use it.
Absolutely. I always say it's just not activated. It's running on it runs on minimal charge. I always say it runs on a charge that you come in with, like a battery, and then that's why fades. That's why, we use the word expire, like a battery. And I think that the journey really is about that opportunity, if we so choose, to begin to understand how to change that temporary charge. Like, you get this much charge, but in the game, if you figure it out, you can have unlimited charge. And so I think that science is even trying to understand it on the level that they are. But I think we're going to see more of that. There's more of that understanding. We know so little, understand so little about the system, the sensory system, and that which occupies these vessels, the magnitude of what we are, that really cannot be squashed down into these vehicles. So there's an aspect of us that's in here, but certainly all of what we are is not inside the vehicle. The vehicles are designed so that we could enter them and have an experience in this environment, the laws of this environment, all the gaseous laws of this environment. The body is designed to be able to function in this environment, and for us to have a particular kind of experience. So we can be more, because we already are more than the vehicle. We're just tunnel vision and very addicted to our lives and the familiarity of what our idea is of being human, and our lives. We're very addicted to our lives, and that's not a good or bad thing either. It's just a realization of, whoa, this is what I'm doing. Okay, so I see how I'm looping myself here. And then you desire, more.
There were quite a few things that I wanted to share, but they just all went away. Of course they do. The
You
slate
know
gets
how that
wiped
is.
clean. I'm like, no, that's not gonna happen. Um, It definitely is something on the linear time because as we go through this learning, oh, I know what it is.
Mm.
Several years ago, I watched this documentary. It was this spiritual event, and it was a secret documentary that wasn't coming to the public yet. And it was a lot of description of how we get manipulated by marketing, by billboards, geometry, subliminal messages everywhere, right?
Mm.
And they were saying that they were looking for a person to send on this mission to recreate and help this the birth of new earth, but
Mhm.
they were looking for a human who has never read a book.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
was thinking, I'm like, and at that time I was a bookworm. I was going through like 50, 60 books a year. I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
God, how can I read everything out there? To, like absorb
Yeah.
it all? And then I was literally told to stop
Yep. Yeah,
and start
absolutely.
getting downloads and forget everything that I've learned and get it
Yeah.
from the source. What would be an advice to someone that is on this journey? Because a lot of things that we're going through right now, there are not books written for it.
Right. And when I mentioned that I read Shirley MacLaine Out on a Limb, and I said I set everything aside, that's precisely what happened to me. I read those couple of books. I did go through my Bible again because I'm like, okay, well, let me see what's missing. Did I miss anything? And then I set them aside, and then I went on the journey without them, without any books after that. So I didn't take any. I didn't. Well, I didn't know about this kind of movement, this awareness movement. So I didn't know anything about workshops or anything like that. So for 10 years, I just committed myself like that for 10 years on my own. So I would say that you're going to know when it's time for you to not read a book. I think that's what it is. You have to begin to trust yourself. You have to begin to trust that. It's like everything else, people get into religious programs, practices, whatever the religion is, and they all serve a purpose. They all serve a purpose, but we have to know when maybe it's time for us to move forward now. Maybe that's not what we need right now. And so I think you have to trust that, because if we say to people, don't read any books, and they're not ready for that yet, maybe the thing that they need to see is in that next book. Maybe it's just one line. And then they go, okay, I got it. So it is really being able to just trust that. Let's say, here you go again with inner. You got to trust that. What do you feel? And just trust that. And if that feeling is okay, set that down. And maybe you might set down books for a week or a year or whatever. And then maybe suddenly again, you get a sense of, you know what? That's calling to me. That's how we start to take back our power, is the flexibility. It's the allowing and the trusting the ebb and flow of our lives and what we need in that moment when we need it, who we come in contact with, who we encounter. We have to just begin to trust that. And that's what I did. And for me, one of the things that when I closed it and set it aside and was done was the greater works than these shall you do. And that drove me,
Wow.
because I was like, okay, I need to find out what are these greater works that I may be able to do. What is that? I need to understand that. And that definitely drove me. Greater works than these shall you do. Because I'm like, okay, well, according to this entity did these things. So you're saying greater works than you walking on water or any of that, or or whatever the case may be. And so anybody who's out there also, because people tend to do that as well, when they discover, okay, well, I'm not into religion anymore, they beat up on it. And you have to learn to just extract what you need, extract, and then let it be. Extract what you need. And that's basically how I felt. I was like, okay, I got that. I got that. And then I kept moving. So
It's like
that's
going
what
to a restaurant. You don't have to you don't have to like everything on the menu.
exactly,
Enjoy the appetizer.
yeah, whatever calls to you. Maybe you're just there for dessert that day. So, it's just a matter of being able to do that. And then you're in the flow. When we talk about we want to be in the flow, that's the flow. can you be okay in the flow? When it dips, when it dips, can you still be okay when it dips? Because it will dip, but that's how you learn. When it goes down and you're like, oh my God, what's happening here? Oh my God, I have to move. Oh my God, I don't have my job. Oh my God, all those securities, that's when it dips, and that's where your foundation comes in. Okay, but guess what? I'm gonna be okay. And the big reason why you're gonna be okay is that reality is a paradox. It's real and it's not real. But our focus is what makes everything what we define as real, right?
Wow.
Real, I define as a realm of focus. So in that moment, that's your focus. It's very real for you. But when you keep bringing yourself back, you go, wait a second, everything is real. It is, but it isn't. That alone for me really helped, because I keep bringing myself back. I'm like, wait a second, what am I upset about? And you bring yourself back, and then you know that this moment is going to pass, and it's going to be okay.
And it makes sense because when you look at some happenings in the past, you're like, oh my God, I reacted that way. And today, like, I couldn't care less. But in that moment, you just feel like,
That's
I,
right.
I remember I went through high school and those exams, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't get an A plus. I got like just an A. And I thought it was the worst thing in the world. And I was crying for days. Looking in the back, I'm like, who
I
needed that
know.
school in the first place?
So unimportant. It is so funny. Yeah, we all have those moments as such things as so unimportant, but in the moment, it was so important to you. And I think the reason, what the rationale behind it is, what is the value that you think is being taken away from you, which is what happened when you didn't get the A plus. You lost value. It's like you lost value points. Then that's what we do all along, all along the journey. It's value, our value is going up and down. And whatever that value is that we have, I think value is to ourselves, or social value. It's all of those things.
I'm sensing that it's probably going to be the last question. I'm sensing a really strong ask from the collective as you're speaking about trust, and it's easier said than done for someone that is looking in the past. You're like, well, how can I trust that there's something better out there for me? Because when I look in the window to the past, it's all showing me matrix of how my life was. How can I believe and trust they could be much better than this? What would you say to them?
First of all, you get more, you do end up getting more of the thing you fear, because that is your focus. Once again, in quantum physics, what we're focused on matters. It literally matters. So we're focused on that thing, what happened before, and then you keep drawing from that. So you have to say, okay, what did I get from that experience? Sometimes that helps if you are able to step away from the feeling like a victim for a minute, and just go, okay, what did I learn from that? And what choices did I make in the matter? You're not going to blame yourself, but you just want to see, what choices did I make in those situations. There was something else with the choices, but seeing how the choices, and it's like, what drove you to the choices? What drove me to the choices that I made? Sometimes being able to just step back and see that, and then you realize, but wait a second, that was then, this is now. So how am I operating in my life now? Am I doing the same things? Is my behavior the same? Am I pulling in the same people? And just taking ownership in that moment of what's happening, how you've been living right now. And then saying to yourself, now, ideally, what would I like? What is the feeling? I'm not talking like specifics, like I want to move from here to here. Instead of living on B Street, I want to go to D Street. I'm talking about, what is the feeling that I want? Because in the end, that's what we want. It's the feeling. We don't want to feel miserable. We don't want to feel unhappy. We don't want to feel all these things. So what is the feeling, ideally, that I would like to have moving forward? What would that feel like? And just sit with that. What would that feel like if you didn't have all of the that you've had before? What would that feel like? Okay, all right. So is my job part of this? Is my relationship part of this situation? Is my relationship with my children, whatever that is? Then you start looking at that, break it down, look at that. How could you improve, or how could you change some of this? Are you in a relationship where you really don't want to be there, but it's just comfortable and you're used to it? You have to look at that too, because now this is a truthful moment. This is how you get out of repeating that stuff. You have to tell the truth to yourself. You don't tell it to anybody else, but to yourself. And then you can see how you can make different choices. Then you start to see, okay, and sometimes you have to practice on a particular behavior, a particular way of operating. You have to catch yourself. Wait a second, you're doing it again. And that's how we start building up our strength to operate differently. But we have to take personal responsibility, not blame, but personal responsibility, and making the choices that we make. Then we can change. We don't have to keep repeating the past. And real quickly too, with when I worked in corporate America, one of the lessons for me was I just was never a fan of working in corporate America, but grateful to the things that I have learned now that I understand. I used it as a way. It's just school. That's all you're in all the time. You're always taking a course. You're always in school. So I remember a moment there when I did have to go back into corporate America, and that little voice said to me, "You're going to go back because there's some things that you need to learn." And I knew that once I learned those things, I would be able to leave. And I know I needed to learn discipline. There was just some things that I just needed, and I wasn't going to get it anywhere but in this place that I don't really care to be. And so I did that. And then one day when I was feeling like, God, I gotta get out of here, it dawned on me, nobody is making you stay here. There is no one making you work your job, not this job, not any job. There is no one that's making you make a car payment, a mortgage payment. It's all choice. And that realization that everything that I was doing was a choice. I could walk out that door and I can't pay my rent. I can sleep on a park bench, but it's my choice. And that to me was forever changing. It changed how I felt going to work when I went in there, because I realized that no, these people aren't making me come in here. I'm coming in here because I choose to. And once I got that and it was more cemented, then one day I said, okay, when it's time to leave, let me know. And I wrote my resignation and I put it in my desk drawer. And I don't know, it was there for maybe a couple months or so. And then that moment came. And I trusted that. I wasn't sure what was gonna happen, but it was time. It was 4 years. I'd never worked anyplace that long in my life. but but anyway,
I was surprised because you're such a leader. I'm the same way. I'm like, I couldn't
yeah.
work for somebody else unless it's like very non micromanaged.
Well, I was able to do it because there were conditions I set up for myself. I would get to work on time so that nobody would ever say anything to me. I was in a management position, but nobody'd say anything to me. So I get there on time. I was never going to take work home. I did that a long time ago. And I was going to leave on time. And I was never going to ask anyone permission if I needed to go leave early or go to lunch. I would tell them what I was going to do. So I had set up these rules for myself. So it worked. Nobody bothered me. As a matter of fact, when I got ready to leave, the president was like, "Oh my God, why are you're leaving?" It was like, because it was like, you're the model person. But I was the model person because I did not want anybody ever calling me into their office. I don't want any conversation with you about anything that you think I did or not, because I already know myself. I'm going to be gone. I'm going to be out the minute this starts. I'm like gone. So those things I learned. But then when it was time to actually just go, and I didn't know, and I trusted that later that day, I got a call from a friend who didn't even know. And she was like, "Remember what we're talking about? And would you still like to come and teach? Da 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 da." And it was so funny how all of that happened. But I knew it was time to go, and I was gonna go. Everything, it's your choice. You're choosing more than you think. It's more your choice in lots of things that you do than you realize.
We always have a choice. And
Yeah,
like I always say, how we make our bed, that's exactly how we're going to sleep. Whatever choice we make, we will live with the consequences and it
yeah.
becomes
And
okay.
that's okay. That's okay. The consequences, whenever you do something, whenever you make a decision, and I say that all the time as well, whenever you make a decision, and you be present, be so present with when you choose, when you make a decision, so that you realize that, okay, so however this turns out, I'm okay with it because I've been conscious of this choice that I'm making. So there's no need to get upset of how it turns out because you made a conscious choice. And that is another thing that I found to be very important. Okay, so this is how this turned out, Sonia. Okay, no, there's no getting upset about it because you were fully aware when you made that decision. And here we are.
Hmm. Be present, own it, and make the right choices. And whichever choice you make, it's going to be the correct one because you're either going to win or learn.
Exactly. Either way, you're gonna be fine.
Beautiful. I would love to ask for those members who are feel so connected to you and they're like, I need a dose of reality. I need somebody to be like, okay, this is where you are. This is where you need to go. How would they go about working with you, or how do you work with clients?
To get on the website, therealsoniabarrett.com, it does say personal development strategist, or they can have a consultation with me. But I do take people on, a 10 week one-on-one if that's what they want to do. It is a journey. It's not just a cushiony, comfy telling you what you want to hear. It's really people coming into their own with the choices that they're gonna be making and being aware. So yeah, so that's something that I offer. I'm also a neurotherapist, so if anybody's in LA, and even if they're not, because I also am now providing remote neurofeedback, and that is a brain changing technology that allows us to reboot our brains like a computer, get some areas where the neurotransmitters are not connected, changing those neural pathways or getting new neural pathways, getting those messengers, the neurons to have proper communication again. And that's for anything, from PTSD to anger to fear to so many different things that it works on. So they can also go on my website.
Thank you so much for those of you who feel called, who are like, I don't know what it is, but every cell in my body tells me I need to follow Sonia. I need to learn more of her wisdom. And I need her to fire me up so I know what to do in this 3D world and how to make sense of this entire beautiful matrix that we created ourselves.
Yes, that's a
Then
good way to
please
put
do
it.
so. Follow the link below and follow Sonia in her journey. This has been such an honor, such a pleasure to have you today and get everybody fired up about the actual present that is here now, because it's
It's
truly a gift.
beautiful. Hmm.
Thank you, beautiful Angel. It's been
Thank
such
you
a
so
joy to
much.
have you.
Thanks, and thanks to your audience.